Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Maurice once again, and today I'll go ahead and do my second review that I have been cooking up. So this one is a game that I kickstarted last year that finally came in, and it's Lawklivya Vengeance. So this one is a game that there's not a lot of games that's out like this right now. It's a cooperative Euro game, so there's some worker placement, resource management. There's a lot of dice chucking at the end of this game, which is kind of cool. The story around it is you are one of four kingdoms that have kind of split away from each other for whatever trifle that they were going through, but then they realized they had to come back and help each other out because there are these creatures that are starting to approach the kingdoms, and they realize that they're going to have to unite to be able to defeat this great evil. So the game takes place across three different uh, stages. So the first stages is your typical Euro style game. So you start off with 4 to 5 workers. You place them in areas to gain some resources. The main resources in this game are stone, wood, and food. And then there's another resource that you can get for the benefit of combat, which is pretty much a reroll uh, token that you can get. But you have these different areas to go and retrieve these resources. There's also a way for you to be able to uh, gain more workers. So on the main mat of the game, or I guess on the main board, you place a worker to where you can get an additional worker to be, for them to be called back. Um, and you're trying to place all these workers out to get resources so you can convert your workers into warriors. And there's three kind of warriors. So there's your warrior that does some kind of hand-to-hand combat, whether they're unarmed, they either wield an axe or wield a sword. There's the warrior that is an archer, so that you can build a bow to make them an archer. And then there's your hero who can wield 2 weapons, and it takes them 2 hits to die. So you have about 6 rounds to be able to build up some warriors and some weapons, and then the first enemy comes around. So after you fight that enemy, if you're victorious, you go on to the second stage of the game, to where um, there's these decks that there's a deck that you flip to determine if you are able to go out and get some resources or if you're forced to fight. In that first stage, you get 6 all clears. Well, I guess it's 6 times the amount of players that's playing. This does have the option for solo. So in a solo game, you get 6 turns before you fight the first enemy, which is just a scout, and they're not that hard to beat. But it's kind of a way to pace you into that final match. So once you defeat that first enemy, it goes to the second stage, which you put all of those all clear cards and all of the enemies into this one deck, and you shuffle it, and then it's rinse and repeat. The issue here now is that if you're playing solo and you defeat 2 enemies, then you go straight to the final boss, and then that number, depending on the amount of players that's playing, instead of it being 2 at solo, it increases at 2 players, 3 players, 4 players, so that you can have more of an opportunity to try to build up an army to go up against that last enemy. So once you go through those cards and you fight, however many people that you need to fight to get to the final boss, then you flip the board over, and there are these 4 columns that's lined up, and then there's the final boss. And then on the back of the rule book, there's the amount, depending on the difficulty that you're playing on, how many people that's playing, you there's a certain amount of hit points that you make. So uh if you make that first set of hit points, so for me, because I was playing on normal by myself, then I had to hit 20 hit points to be able to fight the boss. I mean, to beat the boss, excuse me. So the next time I play, I have to hit 21 to be able to win the game. So it increases up to a certain amount depending on the amount of the amount of times that you win. And the combat in this game is so much fun. So depending on the warriors that you have out, they have a special die dedicated to them. So if you're rolling for a warrior that has has a battle axe, then you pick up the, I guess it's like a fuchsia magenta die, and if you roll the die and you get a face that has the axe on it, that's how many hits that you apply to that particular enemy that you're facing. And it's the same thing with the sword. It's the same thing with unarmed, and it's the same thing with the archer. But the axe is the weapon that deals the most damage. So it has a side with one axe, a side with two axes, a side with three axes. But you got a 50-50 chance of getting one of those, and then the other ones are blank faces. And then it's with the sword, there's a sword with two hits, and then it has three more sides with one hit. So you have a higher chance of hitting, but you may deal less damage than the axe. And then you've got the fist that has a high chance of hitting, but once again, you only have a chance to hit something once with that warrior, or the archer, and they just have a high chance of hitting with one. They rarely miss. So whenever you go up against somebody, you have all the dice of all the warriors that you have, and then depending on the difficulty that you're playing on, the enemy card is split into three different sides where it shows you how many dice to roll and how much health they have depending on the difficulty of the game. So you pick up all those dice and then you start rolling. You take however many hits that you have on your side and then set them to the side so that you know how much damage you're potentially about to place on that enemy. But then on the enemy die, whenever you roll it, they have two different things that can happen. They either have the skull and bones for death, or they have a shield which blocks. So if you roll a shield, you have to place that shield on what's the most powerful attack, and then you count everything else. And then with the kill, you can apply it to whoever. So if you got a hero that's out there and there was only one kill that rolls, well, if you have a hero that has two weapons, then the hero doesn't die; they just lose a weapon. So so you still have this strong unit that's out there that's still fighting, and then you rinse and repeat, and that's just a war of attrition from there. And then with the final boss, whenever you fight the final boss, you have all your warriors that's ready to go, and they're all lined up with the archers. Then it's a war of attrition again, and it's just a lot of dice rolling, just so much fun. So it's a cool game that kind of shifts in its focus as you go along. Because typically with games, there's uh, there's typically, I won't say one way to win, but there's a mechanic that, or a design choice that you stick to for all of the game. But then there are other mechanics and design choices that attributes to it, and or I guess add some depth to it. Whereas this one, the first 2/3 of the game is going one way or the other, and then a slight mix of both, and then it ends on one particular note. And I think that that's just such a cool thing. So this game so far, with the few plays that I've had, I would say that I'll put it roughly around a 7 to a 7.5 out of 10. It's a super fun game. I think that is very quick once you learn the rules, because everybody does their moves pretty quickly. You only have so many choices. But even if you have 10, even if you have 10 workers, like, it's just kind of easy to put things out because you know exactly what you need. Those resources is what you use to be able to convert your workers into warriors, or converting your warriors into heroes, or putting your workers to be able to build up some weapons so that you can empower your warriors. So is it may seem like a lot just from the explanation that I have, but these turns are quick once you learn what needs to, pretty much what you're needing to do, which is build up some warriors so that you can prepare for these enemies that are coming in. But you also have to make sure that you're getting the proper what would you call it? That you're getting the proper weapons. Sorry if you can hear that airplane; it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so you're getting the weapons that you need to be able to have your warriors be as successful as they can against these enemies. So yeah, it's super cool. But I also want to lead into a topic that I think the board gaming industry lacks to an extent, and that's cooperative Euros. Like I think the most I think it's safe to say that the most popular solo game right now that's out is Spirit Island. And, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, I think that it has a lot of design choices that are genius in what makes it an amazing game. I think that the variable spirits that specializes in certain areas, and there's a lot of them, it's amazing how well that they work for the purpose that they serve, and then to be able to try to figure out how to survive all of these colonizers that are coming onto the islands. And if you're playing the game cooperatively, to be able to work with the other spirits to be able to get it to win, or if you're playing by yourself with multiple spirits, it just works extremely well. And I would like to see more cooperative Euros. Even though Spirit Island isn't one of my favorites, I still want to see more of those. And I don't know if that's because it's just hard to design a cooperative Euro. I think that Lawklivya did a phenomenal job with taking something that is still kind of a new concept and is able to turn it into not only a decent game but a relatively easy game to learn. Because normally Euros are mid to heavyweight board games that take up a lot of real estate on the table. They normally take a long time to learn because there's a lot of moving pieces, or there's just a lot of decisions that you have to choose from to be able to establish an engine, or build out a tableau, if that's the kind of game that it is. So, you know, let me know in the comments on what you think about cooperative Euros. Like, do you think that this is something that's worth investigating? Do you think that this is something that's going to be kind of an even smaller niche in what's already kind of a niche hobby? I'd love to hear what you all have to say about it. I want to see more of them because I think that they hold some good value in terms of uniqueness in this field, because we're getting to a point where we're having a lot of games that are starting to feel kind of the same, especially with these miniature heavy games, and we finally have a lane a la cooperative Euro that we can build upon. There's not a lot of, I can only think of a few off the top of my head, with Lawklivya, with Spirit Island, CO2 Second Chance. Um, yeah, I can't even think of a lot of them, so I'd like to see more of them. I'm starting to become more of a Euro gamer. They kind of uh, mentally stimulate me in the sense that I love to see a good engine come to life, and to be able to see, the payoff of overcoming this puzzle of creating an economy of resources, or being able to uh, get yourself in a position to be able to win the game through the uh, I guess those plays that you have early on to be able to set yourself up for success. So I love to see more of it. Yeah, once again, let me know what you think about it. I give this somewhere between a seven and a half. With this game, I think that it is good. It's something that's super easy to play, easy to get to the table. Not a lot of cleanup. After playing some of these hulking games, I think it's just a fun one if you need to fill in, 45 minutes to an hour. If you're fast enough with the game, it's probably something that you can take on a lunch break, assuming that you're allotted an hour of lunch, so to speak. But yeah, it's a super cool game. If you can find it, check it out. I know that the Kickstarter was successful because I actually have a copy of it. But yeah, if this is a game that you can find, please go out and get it and support it. It's by Filtered Reality, so maybe they have some on their website. But thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time and hope you have a wonderful day.